We talk about the things that you think about. I am your host, OMG, along with my current co-host,
Gloria Armstrong.
We'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we ask that you please join in on the conversation, where your thoughts, your comments, and your opinions help drive the conversation. Today we're going to talk about Willie Lynch, the making of a slave, whether or not this is actually true or fiction. You know, since 1995, there's been much attention given to a speech claimed to be delivered by William Lynch in 1712. This speech has been promoted widely throughout African American and Black British circles. It is reprinted on numerous websites, discussed in chat rooms, forwarded as a did you know email to friends and family members, assigned as required readings in college and high school courses, promoted at conferences, and there are several books published with the title of Willie Lynch. In addition, new terminology called the WillieLynch Syndrome has been devised to explain the psychological problems and the disunity among Black people. Further, it is naively assumed by a large number of Willie Lynch believers that this single and isolated speech, allegedly given almost 300 years ago, completely explains the internal problems and divisions within the African American community. They assume that the Willie Lynch Syndrome explains Black disunity and the psychological trauma of slavery. While some have questioned and even dismissed this speech from the outset, it is fair to say that most African Americans who are aware of this speech have now questioned its authenticity and assume it to be a legitimate and very crucial historical document, which explains what has happened to African Americans. However, when we examine the details of the Willie Lynch speech and its assumed influence, then it becomes clear that the belief in its authenticity and widespread adoption during the slavery era is nothing more than a modern myth. That's disheartening. Mainly because, again, a document has come out that, again, people will say is truth in it, and it's not. You know, I've heard more about fake in the last 2 years than I've heard my entire adult career. So I'm assuming now that most of our history is fake. So along with Willie Lynch giving his details, it's like the question becomes, is this truth or is he some urban legend? What do you think, Gordon?
Well, after looking into this subject, I feel it's just a hoax. And the sad part about it is we have enough things to contend with without someone creating false history or fake history.
Has that not always been the case? Because I can point out in the 1700s when Napoleon Bonaparte said, history is a set of lies that has been agreed upon. So that's what our history has been. I think there's very little truth in a lot of our history because they kind of recreated it for us since they destroyed what we know to be our language, our culture, our people, our country. So they destroyed all that. So we're living somewhat a second citizenship of their lives when they get to own us. And in our president's words, this is what makes America great again. This type of thing.
It sure does.
You know, but Willie Lynch, you know, he wrote this letter, or so it is purported that he wrote this letter, and he gave this speech in 1712 at the banks of the James River in Virginia. And he was explaining to the slave owners how to control and kind of whip your Negroes into shape. And what he would do in training these owners, it should last a good 300 to 1,000 years. So as it says in the monologue that I just gave, it's pretty much people are thinking that this didn't really happen. It's just something that they needed to fill a void. So we'll give the Negroes some stories and call it what it is. But in my mind, it's too detailed for some of that not to be true. So I don't know if this is a game pretending that it's not true when in actuality it is.
Well, slave masters did use techniques to separate and Negroes.
They were not called
slaves.
blacks then, guys, so we're not calling them blacks. They were called Negroes at that time.
They used age, but it really wasn't age. The American-borns versus the African-borns, that was separate. Male versus female, they weren't allowed to gather. So there were a lot of different techniques used
to create that division.
Well,
I'm going to add a little bit more to that dichotomy, and that is age, ethnic origin, and language. color, light versus dark,
Exactly.
African born versus American born, as you said, intelligence, occupation, house Negro or field Negro, fine hair versus coarse hair, reward system for good behavior, tall versus short, the status of classes, male versus female, and outlawed social gatherings, just like you said. It's just amazing, but again, I read this years ago, and I remember it had a breakdown that what you should do is but however he had done this, he had it in such a way that he did a role reversal, where the black man was emasculated and the black woman was elevated, because in the teachings that he told these slave owners, he said your most valuable commodity is a Negro woman. Well, they didn't say Negro, they were using the words that was popular at the time, so you know what I'm saying, the N-word. So they were saying that your commodity is the Negro woman, and so basically he has reversed the roles by having the woman run the house or run the whole situation, to where she's the one who can give birth. She is the one that the slave master can use whenever he feels like it. And they emasculated and actually, from his writings, tore someone apart in an effort to prove to a black woman, this is what will happen to your men and your boys if you do not adhere to all of what we're telling you that you need to do. So under that type of pressure, I guess the black woman raised her sons to be more protected by her than she does her girls.
But the sad part about all this, and I do consider this a hoax, is this letter was actually written by a black man.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So they did find out who did this? Who wrote this?
Oh, yeah.
Because I read somewhere that it actually, the letter itself was presented in the 70s. It did not proliferate until the internet came in like 93 through 95, and then all of a sudden it just took, life on its own.
Well, Louis Farrakhan even quoted the letter in his speech,
right,
in his Million Man March.
I said that. Again, you have political people, you have colleges requiring this as a course, with such little authenticity and veracity placed on whether or not this is actually true. They've taken it and blown it into a whole new thing, because schools are teaching it. There's a movie that Denzel Washington quoted, and all the expletives that were said in the alleged speech at the James River. And so it has taken wings of its own, and so we now think that it's true.
But we're here to tell you guys it is a hoax. Don't believe it. It is not part of history. And if you don't believe us, do your own research, and you'll find out that there was no one by the name of Willie Lynch giving a speech on the banks of the James River in 1712. Even the name itself, Will be Lynch, that should be an indication right there that it was a fake person.
Well, hence, they were calling them lynching back during that time. So not only did they give a name to it, they've given a name to it that they have attached a person to it. So Willie Lynch being, again, the indicator as to how they arrived at the name lynching. So this was well orchestrated, if this is in fact fake. I'm not trying to convey to the audience that you should have an opinion either way. We're just giving you facts
that we found,
and if you want to go look for it, or if you want to continue to report that story as fact, that's up to you. But we're just giving you the information that you might want to research and find. But the actual letter itself that was written can be found at thetalkingdrum.com/WillieLynch. Again, thetalkingdrum.com /Willie Lynch, and you can pull up this entire. It's going to come in black, green, and red, in the African color, so you'll know when you've gotten to the right page. But it is actually disheartening to read, and no one in history has ever found this letter. So where did it come from? For us to how did this man get this letter into the mainstream? That's the question.
Well, there was a librarian at the University of Missouri. Mm-hmm. Someone gave her the letter anonymously, and she posted it on the website. Then
that was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then she contacted a couple of history professors to get verification of its.
Well, did she do that before she put it out on the internet?
No.
Okay, well then what the hell?
She already put it out
Okay,
there.
so why are you checking authenticity after you've already put it out as fact? If you want to find out if something's true, find it out first and then put it out there. What do you say, Sophie?
That is normally the process.
That's how
with
that
a public
works.
relations person or a communications person before we even think about publishing
You
anything.
double check your.
You double check, you triple check, and then you go back and double and triple check your double and triple checks. Or else that's your job.
You check your
lose
resources.
your job.
And for an academic person to have put it out there, I don't know if I buy all the story behind it. See, again, I'm kind of torn in betwixt and between, because I know that you can go either way. You can have information that is given to you, and then the internet can quickly dispel it. So there's always that situation. But listen, guys, we're telling you what we think and what we have here to corroborate what we think, but we want to know what you think. So give us a call at 713-789-0096. Again, that number is 713-789-0096, and we are speaking on the letter/speech of Willie Lynch that was given in James River in Virginia in 1712. But I have, just some of the stories. I did find somewhere in research that while part of it is a hoax, perhaps that being the name Willie Lynch, Will be Lynch, or whatever it is,
Right.
that a lot of the material in specificity is actually real. Meaning, all of the things that he said, how they set this whole thing up, was actually considered real. To me, you can't be that detailed, or you can be if you're that big of a liar. You can be, but that's a lot.
Hindsight is 20/20. We can go back and look at the way our situations exist right now, and we can write about it and backdate it to like it was history. But it's what we're actually living now.
But see, what you cannot backdate. See, somewhere along the line, from a former English major, somewhere along the line, you're going to make the mistake. Okay? It's going to be mistakes such as the word black. Black was not used back then. I do know that. In 1712. It was Negroes. I do know that. Also, if you were
the other N word,
or if you
the
were
negative counterpart, its negative counterpart.
Absolutely. If you were of British descent, the word color was spelled C-O-L-O-U-R. It's a whole different spelling than how we use it here. Another word that was not really used back then was the word program. It was used when you talked about a show or a program for like a funeral, but it was not inextricably tied to somebody saying, once they witness or experience the program that I'm bringing to you, it would be envious on the part of whomever it was that who ran slaves before, because he would have done it better than anybody else. This is the words of Willie Lynch. So it's just a lot, but I just don't know. It makes me I'm cynical anyway now, and to me this is conspiracy, but I don't know if it's all theory. I think there's a lot of truth in a lot of it. So Silky, what do you think about, Gloria and I have had an opportunity to continue to kind of kick this around just a bit. What do you think?
Well, some of the parts of that letter, like you said, did kind of manifest itself throughout history. So whether it was true or not, some people took it as truth
Because
and ran with it,
right,
and expounded upon and capitalized, that's the operative word,
right,
on dividing us amongst skin color and hair texture and that sort of thing, and differentiating to keep us at each other's throats.
We still do. That still holds true.
Well, and
so if
it's
it were
carried
just
on.
a hoax, look at what we're dealing with.
Look what happened. The hoax.
Look what somebody.
The hoax took on tentacles.
Look what it could do. Right.
Rooted and became a life of its own. And to this day, where we judge each other by some of those ridiculous things that have no meaning, they have no bearing, no basis in fact or anything. A person's complexion does not determine their character, or the type of person they are, or whether they'll reach their goal or not. It just doesn't. One thing has nothing to do with the other.
I just don't know whether or not I feed into the fact, again, I mean, this was a diabolical plan.
Sinister.
Yes, very sinister, very evil, very diabolical. So, again,
so are viruses. So are computer viruses.
All
Those are diabolical. They're meant to destroy.
from the
but
inside out.
But this destroys a culture of people. This is not computers. Okay, fine.
Right.
I'm not that big on the internet and all this other stuff because I think it serves a duplicitous role in our lives. Other than, hey, family and friends, we're here. This is what we're doing. You know, it gives more of your life than what you choose to put out there. But this has actually this is inextricably tied into the black community now. They've given it a name, the Willie Syndrome. I mean, the WillieLynch Syndrome. And like I said earlier, you know, you've had politicians, you had actors and rappers, and everybody speaks of this or excerpts from Willie Lynch's letter. So I don't know if, again, going back to Napoleon Bonaparte, who said, you know, that the history is just a set of lies that's been agreed upon. Exactly. You know, and I think that's what they did with us. You know, I think they did that with us. They just kind of told us what they wanted to tell us, as they always do.
And it was easy to do. I mean, who was going to stop them? They were setting the rules.
That's it.
Right, and what could we say? I mean, we were blocked out of education.
That's absolutely true.
Oh, Doris Harris checked in.
Hey, Doris.
Yeah, she says, hello, cousin.
That's my cousin.
Hello, cousin.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. Please give us a call, cousin, and see what your opinion is. I think you know my cousin from Petersburg. At any rate, yeah, you should give us a call to see what your opinion is about this Willie Lynch situation. Our number is 713-789-0096. You know, but again, I'm just concerned with, is this something, you can't take it back now.
Yeah, how do you do
You can't retract it.
Centuries of
Yeah.
damage that's so deeply rooted and so profound.
That's what one of my friends said when I mentioned the program today and our topic. They were not internet or Facebook users.
So they were not privy to the letter at all.
They were not aware, and they said one of the negative things of us talking about this subject, now we're making more people aware.
Well, you know, that's
so I guess there's pros
conversely, you can look at it the other way. There are a multitude of people who do have internet and that have had internet for years, and they have moved progressively towards knowing this. What we're doing is discussing something, not making it negative, not making it positive, but putting it out there for someone to extrapolate
what they need
from it. Does it work? Is this what has happened? Is there any truth in this? Look at it, read it. I don't think it's much different than what Alex Haley put out there.
And
in Roots. Was that negative? No.
That
I disagree with that. That was the truth.
History. And it helps us to understand why things are the way they are, maybe why we are the way we are, or why we think the way that we do. I mean, I feel like if you know the history of something, then I believe you're in a position to conquer it.
And not repeat it.
And not repeat it. The more I've learned about things, I'm like, okay, well.
You can't give one white man, the credit for solving 300 years.
He hasn't solved it.
Well, I'm just saying.
To have that much power period.
To enslave a people for 300.
But it can happen. You know, Hitler did it in damn Germany. I mean, it can be done. I mean,
we've seen where it
can be done. Yeah. You know, again, depends on who that white man is, who's in the room when all that goes down. Because again, it's a set of lies that they've decided. Okay, this is what we're gonna tell the Negroes.
Oh yeah.
It's no different than Juneteenth. You know, I have an issue with that. You know, because in my world. And I think I'm not mistaken. I need to be going to break because I'm getting wound up now. But
right, we got about 4 minutes.
But bottom line is the fact that, you know, it's just like America declared its independence in 1776. Well, hell, what that mean for black people? We weren't included in anything until 1862, when President Lincoln did sign the Emancipation Proclamation, which was actually implemented in 1863, of course, which is why the Negroes back east were freed, and the others here in Texas were not informed until
1865,
June 19th, from some soldier who rode into Galveston and told them, hey, y'all are free. But they weren't free because the reason they were not free 2 years prior is because that elusive that white people actually had them harvest cotton.
That's why.
And that's not a myth. That's not a hoax. See, again, anything that can be said can be challenged.
That's why education and knowledge is the key.
Yeah, but you got to. What type of education? What type of knowledge? If you're not getting good information, you know, again, having knowledge is only as good as it is accurate. So if excuse me, if it's not accurate, then
If
it
it's
means
inaccurate, then you still got some problems.
don't just slid out. But bottom line, knowledge only means something if it's accurate. If it means nothing, we have knowledge right now about this story. It's inaccurate, or so it appears. So, and we've got information to confirm that. So, you got to read it for yourself, people, to see all that was said, and you can assess on your own whether or not this has applied to us over the last,
300 years?
Yeah, 300 years, in allegedness, but how many? I guess maybe 40 to 50 years from when the internet actually took it to a whole nother level.
True.
And got exposed to other areas of the world and the country. But, again, it's just something to think about. If it's something we really want to I don't want to believe it, because it makes me angry whenever I read it. I just swell up. I really get worked up just knowing. I can't watch movies like 12 Years a Slave, and
right.
I can't do.
It's hard to watch it.
I couldn't even watch Help, and I knew one of the ladies. Anyway, long story short, but I couldn't even watch that movie where you're being a servant, you're waiting, and then you poop in your pie, and I don't get all that.
I guess you didn't watch The Butler either.
No, I didn't.
I didn't either.
That is history. That is.
But that's again history according
it may be
to
a version of someone's
again, we don't
history,
know what this history is.
But
that's what we're saying. We don't know. I was fine until fake was introduced heavily into my vocabulary. Now everything's fake. Fake news, fake this, fake that, fake food. Just fake. And so now I'm always fake people.
Oh.
Seeking attention, which is what? The new currency?
When you say fake people, you mean AI folks?
No, well that too. That's fake. That's literally fake people. But just the people that are on that are so caught up in social media to where it
becomes your life.
It becomes your life, and you actually live on it. And on that note, guys, we have to go to break. But please don't go away. You're listening to All About You with OMG and Friends.
You got 2 callers, I believe.
Okay, awesome.
How are you doing?
Hot as usual. We're still on the internet, you know that.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, we need to find something else. So, RJ, what do you think as a young man? You know anything about this letter?
I heard about it. I mean, there may not have been an actual guy named Willie Lynch, but the thoughts and ideas that are in it, like they definitely.
See, that's what. This is what. Can you
looks like they take
that in? Because I believe that. I believe that.
But the thing is about that
Say all
is we need to find solutions. See, we keep talking about the problem, but we never seem to talk about the solution.
I mean, that's what I believe that it is meant to be for, so we can find solutions.
So we can find some right. So that,
but we don't do that because I know a lot of we like to just live in the
the past.
They just like to live with the excuses.
I sure would like for you to give a mic.
Can you say something?
20 seconds.
I need you to say. I mean, that was very just like you're pretty good at this. I'm gonna bring you over so you can get scared all you want. That little cute smile turns me.
I needed to be over there because of my hat, the way the hat look on the side, but it's all good.
All right, we're coming back.
And we are back. You're listening to All About You with OMG and Friends, and I am here with my co-host,
Silky Smooth,
Gloria Armstrong,
and we are aggressively discussing the WillieLynch letters, or speech, if you will, for lack of a better term. And by the way, we've got a caller. I apologize. I can't go along with it. Caller, you're on the air. Hello? Caller, did we lose you?
I think they're there.
Hello? I think I may have missed them. But, yes. Yes, sir, you're on the air.
Okay.
Okay, yes, sir, you're on the air. Can you hear us? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I don't know. Maybe you need to call.
Can you hear us?
Ooh. Apologize for that, guys.
Hi, this is Brian. And
okay, we can hear you.
can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
You cannot hear me. Okay, we're kind of looking at the board to see what the problem is. But we can in fact hear you.
We can hear you. So can you give us your opinion while we correct our technical issues? Brian?
I guess he can't hear that.
Hello?
He can't hear anything. Okay, so I'm going
Okay, I
to.
can't hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to continue. We couldn't catch that call. I apologize for that. So in a few minutes we'll do whatever technical things. This is why I don't like technology. It doesn't work when you need it. It's supposed to be on at all times. Okay.
It does fail.
I know, right? So I don't like things that fail. But
That's a
anyway,
failure factor.
We're definitely going to do a show on when the lights go out.
yeah, that's a future show altogether.
Mhm.
But again, you know, guys, I kind of want to know what you think. Do you even know about the Willie Lynch letter? So if you don't know anything about it, then at least it's something to add to your literary awareness. Not necessarily something you have to believe in, but something that you can at least be conversant about to know whether it's truth or not. But we did have someone here in the office, in the studio, a very astute young man, but he's busy at the moment. But he gave us his opinion, and basically that was that a lot of the things that had taken place, he felt like that was pretty accurate. Can you hear us? Hello? Hello? Caller? Okay, I guess we're not having any callers today. Somebody's okay. I hate to keep repeating this, but at any rate, so can you give us some of the things, Gloria, that basically you found distasteful, not true, inaccurate, right off the top? What did you think about it? Because I think the average person reading it feels they have a connection with it because there's so much that they can relate to. That we've seen before,
That
we've seen before,
we have seen and we are
and
seeing,
we've heard these things before. So
and I'm kind of one of those people,
Right.
so I am, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think that there's no veracity there at all in any parts of it? It's just all a big hoax, or is it the man that's the hoax?
The idea that this man stood on the shores and gave this speech and it allowed blacks to be controlled for 300 years. I think that's...
So what has controlled blacks for the last 300 years? Because everything that they brought up it was alleged, okay, but everything that was brought up at the James River, again, in specificity, is something that we deal with. We still do the color thing.
Like I said before, hindsight is 20/20. He wrote about present conditions, but wrote it like it was in the past.
Well, how could that be so relatable if it were not true? So there's got to be.
We're not
truth.
saying that it's not true. We do, as blacks, discriminate against each other for age, for color of skin. We discriminate against each other for hair texture.
Gender also.
Everything.
For gender. So we, in essence, do those things, which is sad and unfortunate.
It is. I have some information here from a professor. He taught the professor of history at Spelman. And he said that the Willie Lynch speech would seem to give a quick and easy explanation of the roots of our much lamented black disunity. You could make similar arguments about the lingering effects of real historical documents like, the religious instruction of Negroes and all of that. But I am noticing that in a litany of historians, nobody knew about this. This letter has never come up.
Never come up in any of the historical...
Frederick Douglass never said anything in his speeches. W.E.B. Du Bois never said anything in his speeches.
Yeah, they never even
They never even acknowledged it. I have one of my favorite books here. It is called The Norton Anthology of African American Literature. Again, it is called The Norton Anthology of African American Literature, and it is written by Henry Louis Gates, who is world renowned for African history. And I have his account. And these come in different series. I've got all four of them. But this one, anyway, I was looking for this one because it gives you a timeline for 1492, what happened from that time on. But at 1712, all he has here chronicled is that New York City slaves revolt is quelled by militia. Pennsylvania becomes the first colony to outlaw slave trade. That's all he has under 1712. If that were a true document, Henry Louis Gates would have found it W.E.B. Du Bois would have found it. You know, Frederick Douglass would have found it, and it would have been used. But again, people like Farrakhan and some of the others, you know, I don't knock somebody, you know, having power and having control over what people may consider truth. Just the fact that he used it, I'm surprised nobody, you know, researched it before letting such officials at that level put it out there. You know,
I think when the officials that did put it out there, I think they got excited and used it as a means to sound profound, but that's inexcusable to not research something and determine, you know, find out if it really is true or not.
Leroy says we need to turn up our mics. He can't hear us.
okay, I don't know how to do that. I guess he would do that.
Our engineer will take care of it. That's much better.
That is much better. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Leroy. Okay, Leroy, where you been? Okay, but you know, the making of a slave, that has a profound title. You know.
Well, you know what? The making of a slave it's similar to people that get involved in religious cults. Those people are somehow made to be members, and they're created, and they're devout.
That's mind control.
Right, but
You
aren't
know,
they
that's-
saying the making of a slave, is that not mind control also?
It is, but what it is also is removing someone from their original language, their original culture.
And cults kind of do that.
Yeah,
Also,
they
they
do.
remove you from your family, isolate
They
you.
isolate you.
Now you want to start, maybe your official language doesn't change, but you do speak a different language. Now all of a sudden you're all about this, and you're supporting this leader to the point where, like in some cases that that Guyana tragedy, where people all committed suicide together. So it can happen, and we see it with cults and things like that all the time. So why couldn't, I mean, he could have easily made those people slaves, and they were to a degree.
I just believe there's some truth to it. I just believe in my heart there's certain parts of it that's true. Now, whether or not Willie Lynch actually exists, I'm not sure. And you know, and it's too many things to really enumerate in what he was saying that he did to us as a people. But again, you blend you have the young against the old, you have the light against the dark, and we still deal with all of that.
And the interesting thing about that light against the dark, I used to always think it was just our people until I started spending quality time around other cultures, and it's even more intense with others than it probably ever could be with us, and I had no idea until East Indian people started coming up to me, and one woman actually told me, well, men don't like dark-skinned women, and I said, I beg your pardon, I've never had a problem getting a date. So, and I said, no, that's not true, and I told her, I said, I get approached by East Indian men all the time, so apparently they're not having a problem with my complexion, but they all do, to the point where it is extreme. Even Asians, they actually come up with products to lighten skin, especially Vietnamese people, and they'll even wear incorrect makeup to make themselves look lighter, even though they look like ghosts.
Well, hell, we do that. Black people do that.
But I mean, I used to think that it was just our people until I started, when you really kind of mix and go around others and travel a lot, you realize, okay, it's not just us at all.
Now, who would benefit from putting together a hoax this big?
Maybe it's because of what we're doing, bringing your attention to the situation. Hopefully trying to, as a result of this, we're so sorry we can't get our callers in, but as a result of this, maybe come up with solutions or ways we can solve the problem of separatism, colorism, ageism.
But we know all this, but we still haven't done anything to it.
Maybe we have
Maybe
never had a
now's the time.
format,
Who knows? Maybe
a platform.
Right, and I just like what you said, Gloria, about education being the key. You know, when you're growing up and you hear things like that, when you start getting more educated, you realize, boy, some of the things I learned at home, some of those people are so stupid. Why do they think that? The person with a lighter complexion's life isn't any better than mine, and they aren't necessarily any more attractive than I am, and they're no more blessed than their lives didn't seem any better, because I would hear people say, well, if your skin is lighter, your life is better, and I said, no, I beg your pardon, it isn't. I know too many white people whose lives are falling apart. Why do you feel like their lives are any better than yours?
Again, it's a training, it's an upbringing, and something that we choose to.
But when you see the truth over and over again, and then when education really opens your mind to be a critical thinker, it makes you ask the pertinent questions. You don't get caught up in it.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that really impressed me yesterday. I had the opportunity to be down by the convention center here in Houston, where the AKAs are having their boule.
Boule, yes, the boule.
And I mean, I was so impressed to see so much pink and green, and they were everywhere. And I just love you, sisters, and keep up the good work. And maybe you guys can come up with some ideas and solutions to our current situation and problems.
I'm not sure a sorority can do that, but
Well,
they could be the impetus behind setting a drive together
A
for all of
movement.
us, and not only AKAs. I, being a member of Delta Sigma Theta, I think you got Zeta Phi Beta, you got Phi, I mean, you got all these different Greeks that all of us, what they call it, Divine Nine, all of us need to get together to do something, to dispel what we have here. I'm trying to do something like that even with my etiquette, you know, to take you out of that realm of us not being nice to each other, us not being kind and polite to each other. Because, as I said, you know, this letter that Willie Lynch has out there, I mean, he has us sounding just like animals. Even
Right.
though they treated us like animals, we actually sound like it from what he says, you know,
Yeah, it
Not-
makes you wonder who the animal is.
right.
But from a positive, if we can turn this into a positive versus a negative, then we're better off as a race of people.
Yeah, well, you know, that's true. So, what was the onset of Alex Haley's book? Was it not a lot of the same type of stories that we have in this particular letter? I just don't. I really do want your opinion, RJ. Tell me, RJ is a young gentleman. He's our engineer. Tell us what you think in regards to this topic. Do you know about the letter? Well, I guess he's trying to get his thought together. So, do you know about the Willie Lynch letter?
Yes, I do.
What do you
Heard
know?
of it.
What do you know about it?
I mean, I know it's just basically a study of, I guess, black people and, you know, how to control them and how to influence the future of, you know, black culture.
Do you think that it's truth or fiction?
I believe the study and the things that are in it are truthful.
I do too.
I just don't know about it coming from just one person who did a study on it. Like, you don't know if it was a group of people who did that study or if it was somebody else or...
Well, I did ask that question. I said, you mean one man during that time came up with all of this?
Well, he didn't, and actually, okay, is that same time? I think it was 17 something. Let me look in my Norton anthology.
And
African
whites were not
literature
all
book.
necessarily all that educated. Many of them were ignorant, couldn't read and couldn't write.
Ku Klux Klan came around. Well, that was not until later. But you know, a lot of this stuff we're not sure.
Well,
How it came about.
lynching wasn't done. In the letter, he mentioned he passed by
A smelly body.
a smelly body. Lynching didn't start till years after 1712.
No,
In
that,
my- in
that,
my
could,
research.
that couldn't be true because you just said that when, well, allegedly when Willie Lynch was coming to Virginia to talk to the slaves, he said, on my way into town, I saw and smelled the fact that you had hung, you know, a Negro to that degree. So, and that was 1712, so obviously it was being done. And what do you think they did to slaves when they ran away? They couldn't control them, which is why they brought him here. And he would say, I'm going to train these slaves like I train horses in the West Indies. I will train them to not trust. I will break them out of their natural cycle. I will change everything about them and make it to where they depend solely on me or the slave owner. And that's basically what they did to these horses. And he said, with what I am capable of doing, this is where the word program was used. The program that I have, nobody can even match. And I can pretty much tell you that this program can be and will be implemented from 300 to 1,000 years. And here we are, 400 and some years. And you know, again, I agree with RJ. You know that again, in specificity, you cannot have this type of information unless it was true. I think it's a combination of truth and fiction. I think it's a combination of the two.
Well, the speech really promotes ignorance of the negative. This is from my research. The speech really promotes ignorance of the negative impact of the 20th century on black family and community life. It's trying, like I said, it's leading us to believe that this actually occurred. It didn't. It's leading us to believe that this one person is responsible for creating the ills of the black community.
His people is
He
not
didn't. Slavery itself did that. The institution of slavery has led us to do some of the things we are doing.
But how could an elusive, non-existent, urban, mythical person be so on point as to the dichotomy that has been created and allowed in the manner in which we deal with one another over the last 400 years? I don't know if it's one man or one group or whatever it is. It's a lot of power that to still be carried out to this day. And so the only way I guess we can really do anything about that is change one person at a time, because we can't really. But I personally believe that it is probably a combination of truth and fiction. Because again, I believe.
Oh yeah, truth and fiction. Truth in the sense
It's
that
like a lie. There's some truth in a lie.
we are, unfortunately, discriminating against each other for various reasons.
And he said that a couple hundred years ago. So somebody, I
He
still
didn't
believe
say
that.
it a couple of. See, that's what I'm trying to say. There is no Willie B. Lynch.
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the actions that were defined in the letter itself that says, I believe some of that was done. I don't, whether or not Willie Lynch was there, that's,
Oh yeah,
that's neither
they
here nor there.
used
But they used some of these
the
tactics.
slave owners did use tactics to separate.
Right.
Divide and
So
conquer.
that corroborates what I said. There is some
Due
truth to
to
this.
because they saw strength
due to
in the numbers.
they wanted to create a profit system to have people picking cotton and putting in their crops. So they wanted that free labor.
Okay, well, you still have that now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not much happening. Is there any different now? Slavery's still happening. We don't have this one man, this elusive man out there who holds it over our heads, but we're still living under the same.
Concepts.
Right.
We've been conditioned, unfortunately.
That's my point, and that's what's sad. So I don't know how we break. I guess you just break it by hell.
Education.
Just doing it. Education.
Love
the
everyone.
right education.
Exactly.
Because you got to get, again, correct information. It's like when people say, if you knew better, you do better. But first you have to know.
You need to know better.
But I just think it's a combination of the two things. But again, only we are the ones who can change this. Whatever he put in writing, we can dispel all of it by putting ourselves as a culture ahead of the lies that we've been taught over the last couple hundred years,
Right.
by proxy or otherwise. But I do think let's hope that this is a hoax, and we can kind of go from there. But again, we're just exploring the opportunities where it is mentioned that this could possibly be not true, and we have quite a bit of evidence that pretty much states that.
That is interesting. Oh, Ray Martell is checking in.
Hey, Ray.
Ray is here. He's
Okay.
checking in. Thank you for.
That's just-
She was gonna be one of our callers
I
today.
guess she may not be. Sorry, Ray. I apologize for that. Could not get through. But
And
because I really wanted to find out what people thought about this, because again, most of us know about it, and most of us believed it.
Yeah, because you were told that this is true, and this was used to control you hundreds of years ago, and it still has taken root. It has tentacles, and it has come into your
And it has-
present day life. And as long as you and when you train your children that way, it's going to continue.
Okay, so we do acknowledge America having its birthday in 1776, which was like 60-some years later, 50-some years later from the James Ritter thing. What I'm trying to figure out, why do we as black people, having been slaves, we were not independent. We were not declared independent. So why do we celebrate a country's independence that doesn't really acknowledge us? So I tie all of that, the Willie Lynch, the 4th of July, and Juneteenth. To me, that's all in one big pot of dealing with slavery and how we should be dealt with, what we should acknowledge. And so now we're into a new urban, modern slavery.
I think with the celebration thing, the celebratory thing is I think our people want to celebrate with the mainstream. the way the mainstream celebrates, because I think it was Alexander Hamilton or someone that
What,
said
you
something
mean
about
Fourth of July?
July should have parades and fireworks and those kinds of things, and I think sometimes our people just get caught up.
Well,
and just
we'll
want
jump
to-
at a party. We'll do a
Yeah.
party, period. You know, that I think that's one of the things.
and want something to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see where Brian has tagged it on Facebook and said he can't seem to call into the station. I humbly apologize for that.
Forgive us for the technical difficulties. This is
Yeah, but at
Something
any rate,
that
guys,
happens,
even though you can't hear us, or you can't call in, just know that the content of what we're trying to relay to you does warrant some thinking. You know, it's your basic opinion as to how you deal with it and what you extrapolate from the conversation today. But
you know, it's interesting about the 4th of July celebration. We've always celebrated in our family and extended family in a big way. Growing up, we went to the parades and had the big barbecue, and everybody went to the fireworks. But then at the same time, our parents were telling us that that holiday has no meaning for us.
your parents told you that?
Well,
Okay,
it was my
just
dad,
that.
yeah, my
Just
mom,
that.
and then it was some friends of hers. They got into this discussion, and I believe my dad was there. He was a big Black history buff, and they were saying that because my father would always say, we're still in a modern
That's
day
exactly
slavery.
right. What
And
are
he
we
was
celebrating?
arguing about it, but yet we still got together with the family because that's what everybody wanted to do, and had these big barbecues and the music.
People don't
and,
want to break traditions sometimes,
Right.
whether they're wrong or right.
right, and he made the homemade ice cream with that old cranky churn.
Oh, we all did.
And the
Yeah.
whole thing, and
The rock salt. I remember all of that as
yeah,
a kid.
he would make us take
Yeah,
turns,
take turns
churning
spinning
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
we
was
all did
awful, you know.
You know,
But yeah, but they did say that. So I remember hearing that growing up. They said that holiday means nothing for our people. It means absolutely nothing. It's not our celebration.
yet we take on a party.
Yeah, we still had we got new outfits. Oh, we got we got new 4th of July outfits. The whole thing. So
Really, I'm looking at this. The Lynch speech was popularized by the Million Man March, as you've mentioned, held in Washington, D.C. in 1995 by Louis Farrakhan. He stated, "We as a people who have been fractured, divided, and destroyed because of our division, now must move toward a perfect union. Let's look at a speech delivered by a white slaveholder on the banks of the James River." See, he even perpetuated
quoted
it.
Yeah.
Listen to what he said. "In my bag, I have a foolproof method of controlling black slaves. I guarantee every one of you, if installed correctly, I will control the slaves for at least 300 years. So spoke Willie Lynch 283 years ago." Now, this is a minister. This is someone who has people write speeches
But
for
the
him.
word,
This is someone who writes speeches for him, who did not check.
the word foolproof
Was foolproof.
is a 20th century word.
Well, there's another that in some of the
Self-fueling.
refueling.
Refueling.
Self-fueling.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Those are 20th
again, a
century
lot of the
words, so they
acronyms.
could not have been in the speech in 1712.
right, he paraphrased a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, guys, you have to check this out for yourself.
And he
to
didn't get
whether or not-
anybody to check the facts.
Yeah, you didn't have anybody to corroborate what you're saying, but it's something to check into, because if it's not true, then change your actions. You know, we do have an opportunity to see this as negative, turn it into a positive, and you know, be on
He
top
also
of it.
said, I remember, and one of the things people were arguing with Farrakhan during that Million Man March, he also professed that he was the Christ. So
Who did?
Who did?
Farrakhan did during
Oh.
that Million Man March speech. He was saying that he was Christ.
Well, he certainly has gotten quiet lately.
Yeah, but that he was saying that. So, you know,
Well, you know,
'cause I think that speech was like 4 hours or something that he gave. It was
wow.
extremely lengthy.
And then they did have a guy named Willie Lynch who could not have authenticated a letter in 1712 because he wasn't born until 1742.
Okay.
So that's kind of hard. You know, I mean, there are a lot of loopholes in the actual letter.
Yeah, when you take the time to do the research, the holes, the gaping holes, what it sounds like, especially with the Willie Lynch not being born until
But
much
we
later.
should, yeah, I think we should know if it is history. Okay, it is what it is. Just move on and do whatever we can do to change as a people. To
I
get,
wouldn't subscribe to it.
well, I wouldn't either. And if it is a hoax, then let's just stop passing it on. Let's just shut it down. And when you realize you hear somebody quote it, just tell them look up the story. The facts are different than what you were saying. You know, there was no Willie Lynch, but hence there's lynching. But with that being said, guys, again, our goal is to just talk about the things that you think about and allow you the opportunity to explore them further through conversation. And we'd like to thank you for joining us this evening. I think Sophie has something that she's going to say because we always try to end on a gratitude note so that we can all remain focused, prayerful, and in good spirits. Sophie?
Let's see. I don't have any specs.
Oh, no glasses? Oh my God. See, I don't wear
Yes.
glasses.
Yes. Thank you, my colleague. Let's see.
Can you actually see through someone else's glasses?
I hope.
Well, sort of. Gratitude joins us all to life. I feel this communion, the strange attachment, most roughly with large.
You need
What
me
is-
to read it?
Yeah, this one.
Okay, I am probably the older one here, and gratitude joins us all to life. I feel this communion, this strange attunement, most readily with large white pines, a little less with sugar maples, beeches, and oaks. Clearly, white pines and I are on the same wavelength. What I give back to the trees, I cannot imagine. I hope they receive something because trees are among our closest friends. Okay.
And on that
Back
note,
to nature.
We will see you next week on the radio. Yes, what happened with the phone?
Oh, Evelyn
takes me
sent a
I
message
saw
and said
it
the
said-
phone lines are down. That's what
We needed to know that before now.